So do the best you can, and then when you know better, you do better. Has anybody heard of these lines before? These are lines from a very, very famous American poet called Dr. Maya Angelou. And this has actually shaped my career choices over the last 2 decades. So, just about a year ago, same time, I was a fashion entrepreneur. You heard that in my introduction. I had a very successful plant based fashion brand, first of its kind in India. I made okay money. I sold in a few countries. I won a lot of awards. Everybody used to write about us. But something in that whole equation just didn't feel right, right? Because I wanted to work in the space of climate and impact. So why was I selling bags? Why should, even if they were good bags, so why was I selling bags? And that question used to really bother me. So I decided to step back a little, end of last year. I said, all right, let me use whatever influence I have, whatever knowledge I have, to really start having this whole climate conversation. Why should we even care? I mean, right? That is what I want to talk about today. And over the next 15 odd minutes, I'm going to talk to you about my journey from a very, very capitalist MBA turned consulting professional into today what I do. If you guys are hoping to take this journey, some of it could be useful, most of it could be not. But let me share what I have learned over the last 6 years. Firstly, nobody wants climate change to happen. Not the guy who's working in the oil industry, not the marketing executives at Shein who are selling you polyester dresses, not that D2C founder who is taking plastic sachets and putting it in Blinkit bags and sending it to US testers. Nobody wants climate change to really happen, right? We are all just going about our lives, right? We are all just trying to adult, do jobs, earn some money, pay our bills, pay our college loans, mortgages, debts, save for our children, save for our future. And we need to find jobs that make money, create shareholder value, keep our managers happy. So we're all just trying to live at the end of it. And this whole thing used to make me really anxious, really angry earlier because I'd be like, why can't people see what they're doing? Why can't they see what impact they're having? Why can't they see what, how they're messing up the world? Till finally I realized that we are all just people who are trying to make the best choices we can, choices that are easy, convenient, affordable, but in a sea of bad options. So, unfortunately, that's the real truth of it, right? So, think about it. I have to go somewhere and I want to buy a dress. And I start scrolling, and everything that looks good and is within my budget is unsustainable, so to say, right? It's synthetic, it's polyester, it's mixed fibers, which cannot be recycled. And I know if I buy that dress, I'm going to add one more outfit to the world, which it doesn't need and cannot be recycled. But what do? Should I buy it? Yes, no? Yes, right? I will buy it. And that's the point. Human mind, we place a lot of emphasis on what we call as motive or intention. So in this case, my intention is not to hurt the planet. I just want something to wear, right? And that's the reason a lot of us do what we do because it's not intentional. Whatever is happening in the world, it just in a way appears to be collateral damage. So we get away with doing a lot of stuff. And that's the thought I want to leave you guys here with, that it's very easy to excuse ourselves from making a few choices because we just tell ourselves that we're trying to do the best we can. But within those choices, if you start making more mindful choices, if you start giving a little consideration to what the impact could be, over a period of time, it gets easier. It becomes more of a habit, really. There is no defined single starting point. So, climate journeys, your whole journey to be more responsible, a more responsible citizen, a more mindful citizen, a more sustainable citizen, there's no starting point. You can start at any point you want, right? And for example, I'm a mom, but I'm a mom to a teenage daughter. So that kind of wires everything I think about the planet, right? That in another 15 years, when the time she's an adult, what will the air be like, cities be like, temperature be like, her food, plastic. So my entire thinking is wired by how do I make this a more livable world for my daughter when she grows up? People, it could be different starting points. For somebody, it could be a health trigger because health and climate are very linked. For someone, it could be just the fact that they like traveling. So places they like traveling to are getting destroyed because of climate and irresponsible tourism. For someone, it could be animals. For someone, it could be a craft. So it could, your starting point to start caring really could be anything. So once you find that one thing that you really, really do care about, and you do a little bit of a deep dive into it, you will start seeing the climate connections with it. And that's a good place to start figuring out how do you contribute and how do you make a difference. So climate conversations are not easy. Okay? People think you're weird. So last week I was coming back from Goa, and I had this flimsy boarding pass that I had printed out on that machine. So I gave it at the counter, and the lady who was checking us in, she asked me, she said, "Do you want a boarding pass?" So my instinctive reaction was, no, why waste paper? I'm good with this one. And then I see my daughter standing right there and she's rolling her eyes at me. And so I asked her what. So she's like, why can't you just say no? Why do you have to be an activist all the time? So, and I get it, right? Because sometimes she's with me and I say a few things and then people look at us weirdly and she gets embarrassed. The point I'm making is you will get a lot of that if you start having conversations. But what I want you to remember is it's never about us, it's always about them. And the fact that these conversations make people uncomfortable, right? Because here's the thing about climate conversations or any kind of sustainability conversations. Once you know that information, you cannot unknow it. And once you know it and you understand it, you start feeling responsible to do something, because this is not a one person's problem, it's not a government's problem, it's not an individual's problem, it is a collective problem, right? And if you don't do something about it, then it bothers you. So people, and that's the reason people don't engage with this conversation, because they just don't want to deal with it. So never take it personally when people say these things to you. I don't. And please don't stop having them. Breaking the climate silence. I think many of us care, but we don't talk about it enough. And I think my request will be that even when you're not saying anything about it, you are actually saying something about it and you're making a statement about it, right? Most of us feel that, how do I talk about it? I don't have any formal education in the space. My lifestyle doesn't allow me to talk about it, etc., etc. And I used to feel like that when I started talking about it. I started talking and writing about it very actively about 6 years ago. And I had no formal education. I was a fashion entrepreneur, for God's sake. And I mean, what right do I have to talk about sustainability? But research has shown that, uh, in communities, when people start talking about a problem, and when more and more people talk about it within the group, it actually gets viewed as a potential threat and people take it more seriously. When you don't talk about it, without saying anything at all, basically what we are telling people is that we don't need to consider it. It's not a big problem at all. So even when we're saying we care about it, but we're not going to speak about it, what you're essentially telling people is, hey, it doesn't matter. So I think more and more of us need to start talking about it in any little way that we understand it. So how do we do that? You hear an idea, share it. You have an idea, put it out there. You see something that's not going down well, raise your voice. There are millions of ways to do it, but the whole piece on climate action is about, you have to first have the awareness that something is wrong. You have to acknowledge it, and action comes there later. And it really needs human conversations and millions of them. Okay. So resisting change is human. Making excuses is also extremely human, right? The human mind is wired to resist change because A, the human mind is lazy and change takes effort, and B, historically our minds view any change as a threat. So we want to run away from it, and the mind will give you hundreds of reasons as to why you should not do it or why you should not change. Anybody who's attempted to go to the gym, start running, pick up a sport, start something, you know what I'm talking about, right? You don't want to start something, it's normal, but you have to push yourself. So here's the thing about the climate crisis, right? It's not one problem. And I get this question often that, why are you focusing on something when there are so many bigger things to worry about? But what I want you to understand is it's not one single thing. When we talk about the climate crisis, it's more like a poly crisis where multiple problems are kind of getting aggravated at one place. So, what do I really mean about that? Think about it. Over 350 million people today are facing extreme food insecurity. They don't get enough to eat. And largely, this is because of droughts, and which is aggravated by climate. So, it is a food right crisis. Okay. One in every six species today, as we speak, is going extinct because of rising temperatures, because of change in habitats, change in air, water, land, etc., etc. So it's a biodiversity crisis. Millions of children across the world get displaced due to extreme climate events. They lose their education, they lose their childhoods, they lose their access to food, water, medical facilities, and it's happening all the time. So it's a children's right crisis, right? Women and children who live in, extreme climate conditions or who are affected by extreme climate conditions are most vulnerable to human trafficking, to gender violence, to economic inequalities. So it is a gender rights crisis. So climate change is costing us trillions of dollars every year. The World Economic Forum has just published a report to say that climate change and extreme climate events is costing the world $16 million a minute. Okay, that's the loss. What's in it for me? I hate this question, but it's an important question. And human beings are essentially selfish beings. We always either say it or don't say it, but we're always thinking, what's in it for me, right? So I get this comment all the time that you can't change human behavior. You need to give people an incentive to change. Otherwise, they will not change. And most often, affordability and accessibility become the two main criterias for people to switch. So here's an example. Last year, this is me at the Berlin Wall in Germany. I'd gone on a vacation. Just by doing something as simple as carrying my own bottle, a refillable bottle, I saved myself 12,000 rupees on that trip. You can save a lot of money by making swaps if you really want to. Yeah. You don't need to change your life. There is a very, very common myth that people feel that if we need to be sustainable, we need to change our entire life, we need to stop living life, we need to overhaul our life. We don't need to do anything, right? You just need to be more conscious and more. So if you already um, let's say put off your lights when you're going out of the house, if you if you don't waste food, if you don't litter the road, if you're not honking like a crazy person on the streets, if you are just managing your waste better, if we are doing little things, if we are carrying your own bottle, I hope everybody does, you are already taking climate action. We just don't code it that way in our heads. So it doesn't need you to overhaul your life, it just needs you to take small simple steps. Okay. This is the scary one, okay? This is Western Express Highway in Mumbai, and this is the traffic we deal with every single day when we are going from point A to point B. And the thing about climate is if we don't work towards changing it, it will change us. And that to me, honestly, is an extremely scary idea. So, there's already research to show that heat is changing the way our minds are wired. Our neurology is changing, which means that people are getting more irritable, more bad tempered, we get angry faster, and things like that. And the other thing that comes is the whole scarcity mindset. So if you're stuck in traffic jams, do you realize how we try and push our ways through? We honk, we elbow cars, the whole idea that there isn't enough space, there isn't enough time, there isn't enough resources. So we always need to kind of elbow our way out of things. So human beings typically do very badly when they feel resources are scarce, right? And now imagine a world where basic resources that we take for granted are scarce: water, food, clean air, public spaces, places to live. Once that starts happening, it is going to make society such a dangerous place. Everyone's going to start fighting. Everyone's going to be aggressive. Everybody's going to be me for myself. So, if we don't change the world, it is going to change us as humans, and not in a very good way. Okay. We're all hypocrites, all of us, including me. When it comes to hypocrisy, I think being a climate hypocrite is a good thing. It means that we care enough to do something. We may start, we may fail, we may uh, give up after a few months, we may find it too hard, we may start over. But my point of view on that is it's all right. It's all right. Human behavior is very hard to change. So we have to be kind to ourselves. We don't live in a society that makes it very easy for us. So you have to go against the basic core of society if you want to change a few fundamental things about yourself. But if you want to do it and you're trying, that's a good thing. I had promised 10 lessons, so that's my 10th lesson where I'm confessing. But I think I'm going to end with this, that we really need many, many people making climate pro choices, not one, two, like all of us literally. And that's the only way we can shut the tap, fix the leak, and mop the floor all at once when it comes to climate. Thank you.